What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, continuing my deep dive into the Grateful Dead's 1981 officially released concerts, the full shows. Now I'm going to discuss the second show that was part of the In and Out of the Garden, Madison Square Garden 81, 82, 83 box set that dropped. I think that was just last year, 2023, right? Or was it early 2024? It was 2022. Wow, it's been 2 years since this dropped. So this show is March 10th, 1981. The last video I made was the show from. Why does it do that? The last video I made was the show from March 9th, 1981, which was the Stand Alone release that came out of this box set, which was an incredible choice as far as Alone release choices go, because that show was absolutely amazing. And what we have here is the show after that. And it feels like maybe there's a little bit of a hangover from the previous show. Like a lot was left, like nothing was left on the stage. I'm left in them. It was all put in the audience, put on the stage of that ninth show. That ninth show is like one of the best shows ever. I'm trying to get it brighter. And so this one, it feels like it takes a little while for them to kind of get their feet under them. And the first set of this show, great set list, great song choices, some interesting developments as far as songs starting to really come into their own, into their 80 versions. But it really isn't, I think, until the second set that the fire actually starts. And the fire actually starts during Fire on the Mountain, of all things. But a solid show. One of those, I think, if you were there, I mean, if you're not a Dead fan, most of the times if the Dead came to Madison Square Garden and you were living in the area, you went to both shows. Everybody did that. You try to get tickets for all the shows if you could, just because they didn't repeat songs. And there's no repeated songs between this one and the ninth. First set, continue all of disc one. It's a 3-disc. The show is spread out across 3 discs. Opens up with a Mississippi half step. Love the song. We're starting to get into that area where Mississippi is a very common opener. I think this is exactly where it should be. Kind of has a sweetness to it, this performance. The closing solo, that solo that comes between like the last verse and across the Rio Grande, you can tell Jerry's just trying a whole bunch of different things, maybe to try to like catch that fire. Like he hasn't really found that one idea that he can ride and take off on, but he keeps trying to find ideas. Like the energy's there. Well, maybe not the energy, but the effort is there, but there's just something that seems to like not catch. It's a really nice, long, sweet solo before we get to like the across the Rio Grande, but it just feels a little weary, feels a little like exhausted from the previous night, and it just feels like the intent is good, but they just really haven't got their feet under them early on. That immediately drops into the dun, 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 nice Franklin's Tower, Mississippi Franklin's, nice pairing from the 80s and 90s. Always love this. Great energy. We're jumping into the vocals almost immediately. But the solos, they're long. Jerry's exploring, the band's going out there, but they do, again, feel unfocused. Like they can't find that one idea to like rally around, to like just let the music hit that next level. I mean, if you were there, it would be fun. You'd have a good time. You'd be dancing. But I don't know that the playing is. I don't think it matches the previous show thus far. But good song choices and good playing, and the ending's fun. Since there's no help slip to call back to close it out, they're trying to figure out how to like end this, and it's kind of a fun little like wind down as they all try to maneuver themselves into like an acceptable ending. And then that goes right into a Me and My Uncle, which is fun. There is in Mississippi Half Step almost immediately this really, really loud, aggressive noise that takes over. Apparently one of the speakers had fallen. Later on in the set, Bob would say something like, that was not noise that you heard earlier, that was art. So there's some unexpected art that happens early in Mississippi that's really jarring, but it's explained. Get a nice Me and My Uncle. We get a Must Have Been the Roses, Little Red Rooster, which is fantastic. Awesome to hear Little Red Rooster is part of the rotation now. A mid set, Don't Ease Me In. This would eventually find its way towards the back of the set and be sort of a set closer. I'm not sure I like the song in either one, to be really honest with you. It's a fun song. I think I maybe like it better in the middle of the set than I do to close it. But we get a Don't Ease Me In. A Lazy Lightning Supplication. The supplication is really kind of patient, kind of like deep, kind of like low key but spacey, kind of where I want a supplication to be, especially in a first set. Kind of goes out there pretty well. Kind of short. I mean, I always want supplications to just go farther and deeper. And it seems like every time they're reaching that point where I'm like, okay, now things are really starting to cook, they go back into it and they close it out. This is that same thing. But while they're in that jam, it's pretty cool. But it almost feels like Jerry feels the same way, because once they finish those closing vocals, we get a really nice kind of post-vocal jam before supplication wraps up. So that's a really nice treat. We get a Brown Eyed Women. And then we get a Looks Like Rain. And we're really getting to that era where Looks Like Rain is becoming this really long set piece. You know, Bob's going off at the end. Jerry has a fantastic solo at the end. His tone is aggressive, just really, really tasty stuff. And so we're starting to, Looks Like Rain is really starting to stretch out. And then that goes right into a deal. And this is a perfect way to close the first set. I wish that somebody had recognized that it Looks Like Rain as sort of the penultimate song in the first set into some like Jerry rock, or heck, could have been Don't Ease Me In and I would have been happy, is a better place for Looks Like Rain than second set. Bob would eventually say, hey, it's better pre-drums in the second set. I disagree. This is perfect. Get a little bit of jamming, you get a stretched out thing, the boys get to loosen up a little, they get to be a little bit playful. Bob gets to do his like kind of over the top stage dramatics where he's like, looks like rain, you know, he gets to go off. It's kind of like a little exercises before you hit that second set when you can do other things. So, and then maybe Looks Like Rain takes this spot and Let It Grow ends up in the second set more often, which I think would have been cool, but Let It Grow to close the first set's pretty epic, so not going to complain about that. But then we get a Looks Like Rain deal to end the first set. Not a bad set in any way, shape, or form. I think just comparing it to the show on the 9th, they're just not cooking yet. It feels like maybe they're a little bit hungover. Things aren't clicking like they did the night before. So we get the second set, starts on disc 2. We get all the way from the second set through drums, or the beginning of the second set through drums. Get a Scarlet Fire to open. Scarlet's pretty good. The one thing that stands out for me is Midland's organ energy just throughout the entire thing. When they immediately drop into the jam, Midland takes over and plays that like Scarlet riff on keys and kind of sets it up in a really nice way. Just good energy. Jerry has a couple really nice sort of descending, very choppy type lines that kind of set up a slightly funky vibe before he goes off on like your more typical Scarlet exploration. Relatively short, kind of reminds me of some of the stuff earlier on in the first set where just when you feel like he's starting to cook and he finds it, all of a sudden we're in fire. So it's like, okay, but fire smokes, like fire burns. Fire is fire. We're all over the place dynamically. We're intense. We're low key. We're like shredding. We're not shredding. We're atmospheric. We're just throwing it all out there. There's a moment at the end where Jerry is just making that guitar scream. It's just like, wah, wah. Just like these really metallic shrieks that Jerry's bringing. Like just, Jerry is locked in on this one. Like the fire on the mountain, things are clicking, things are working, things are absolutely just, yeah, you're going to see smoke in the distance. And when you show up to check it out, there's a fire raging below. It's a good fire on the mountain. That goes into a Lost Sailor, pretty typical Lost Sailor. We get a Saint of Circumstance. Jerry's feeling the Saint of Circumstance. That middle sort of building, falling apart spacey jam. Jerry's locked in, really nice. There's like an ending jam after the vocals where Jerry's bringing it. Like, it almost seems like the band failed to recognize in Fire on the Mountain that Jerry had figured things out and was ready to tear it up, because after saying a circumstance, we go into drums. We do get a nice, weird, sort of a Phil Lesh, Bob Weird drum jam before we get into the actual drums, where Bob's just playing some really weird noises. Almost a couple times it feels like it's a mistake, but they're just really aggressive metallic sounds. A jam that should have gone on much longer than it did. And I don't think Jerry's there for it. So maybe Jerry was just having one of those nights. He needed to leave early, but should have been something else here. Should have been an opportunity for Jerry to go off at this point. Even if it's a He's Gone, so we get like a post He's Gone jam, that would have been fantastic. But then we go into drums, closes out set 2. Disc 3 opens up with Space. And really early on in the Space, we know that we're going into the Wheel. It's pretty obvious the Wheel is coming up. And in the 80s and 90s, this is one of my favorite parts of Space, is when we know early that we're going into the Wheel. Because the way they just toy with that melody and toy with that intro, but never actually commit to it for much longer than you think. And we're like, okay, we're still in space. We're going into the Wheel still, right? We're still in space. One of the best parts of the Dead. One of the best parts of Space. Just that anticipation of what's coming. We get a Wheel. After the Wheel, Jerry's still taking over. We get a China Doll. Always good to hear a China Doll. Low key, slow burning, intense. We're playing this for emotion, not for ferocity. Beautiful China Doll. That goes into a Truckin'. The build in Truckin' is excellent. Kind of short and to the point, but they nail it. And then they drop. Really nice. After the drop, they immediately like kind of lower the temperature and bring it down. And we're starting to flirt with the blues territory. It's a little brief section where maybe it sounds like we're going to play Spoonful. Then we definitely get what has to be a Smokestack Lightning quote in there. Kind of this blues energy kind of rides for long enough to make you think somebody's going to maybe step up and start singing. They're actually going to maybe go into the song. They don't. They kind of come out, and then we get a really nice Sugar Mag to kind of wrap up the set. And then we get the encore, and we get I believe, the third ever cover of the Rolling Stones' Satisfaction. And the song itself just never works for me. Like the intro just never works. Really heavy on the bass. It always just feels a little bit clunky to me. But as the song goes on and they find the groove and Bob just starts, doing his Bob Star rock show stuff, it starts to get better, even though it is rough. But then the ending jam on this thing is just beautiful. It is just amazing. They just jam it out and jam it out. They're having a good time. They don't rarely jam out encores. Encores are pretty straight and to the point. And they're like, hey, we're done with jamming. We're not even going to think about it in an encore. But we get a nice little solo in here. It's not like epic. It's not like a 10-minute long thing. But it's some really nice playing. And they're enjoying this Satisfaction. Like, I think it might be one of the best Satisfactions I've ever heard. And then the treat of all treats at this point is that kind of melts down. And we find ourselves wrapping up the night with a Broke Down Palace. Just perfect. The perfect sort of, it's not the dessert, it's the perfectly made coffee at the end of the meal that just sits on top of everything so beautifully. So yeah, a really strong second set. And if you have not been paying attention, one of those really cool second sets where they don't alternate songs: Scarlet Fire, Jerry, Lost Sailor, Lost Saint, Bob, Wheel China, Jerry, Truckin' Sugar Mag, Bob. Then for the encore, we get a Bob Jerry or Bob Everybody kind of thing. But yeah, really fun show. I can't say it compares. I mean, it compares. The second set compares to the previous show from the 9th, which I highly recommend everybody check out and get, because that thing is just like perfection. This one is in no way bad and is enjoyable, and I will listen to this again. But yeah, it's that second set where everything really, Jerry especially, seems to figure things out. And once Jerry figures things out, it just gets much better. Where would I rank this among the other 81 I've done? I have it right there at number 3. That one on the 9th, easily the first one. That Dick's Pigs Volume 13. It has a He's Gone caution jam that is worth the entire thing, so get that. All of these are pretty good, but I would have this at number 3. It doesn't have that epic type of He's Gone caution jam, but it is all really good. So yeah, that's all I got. Highly recommend. Heck, the box set is surprisingly good if it's still available and it's affordable. 81, 82, and 83, kind of the lost years from the Dead as far as what's out there. Officially release wise, maybe even what they have available to release, I don't know. But so far, these two 81 shows have been pretty fantastic. So thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this show. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do those things. And peace. Talk to you later.